Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following this program, and I hope you have been, you've seen me interview folks about music, theater, literature, education, and achieving success. Today we're going to add stand-up comedy to that. Futurartist Records presents Taheera Harris.
Hey.
Thanks for coming up today. I know it was a fair drive for you, so I appreciate you making the trip.
You're welcome, no problem.
So you're a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
You started a little bit later than most people probably do, kind of probably maybe some ribbing from some friends who said you needed to do it.
Right.
So how did you get into it, and what was your inspiration?
Well, I mean, comedy just kind of found me. I was just sitting out with some friends, and there was a guy going around with a mic, and he was like, "Who wants to do comedy?" And everybody just pointed at me, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And so I did a quick little open mic, and I've just been doing it ever since. It just seems like it's just something that just took off.
Now, was that something that you wanted to do and just needed that push, or did you just kind of go, "Oh, everybody wants me to do it, I'll just give it a shot"?
Everybody always told me I should do it. I've always been the class clown and stuff like that, but it just really hit me that I was supposed to do it when I felt the stage presence of performing in front of everybody. And so it was like, okay, it just seemed easy.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, okay, maybe this is meant for me, because I was a little nervous, but I jumped right into it. Like, I was happy to be goofy. Like, it was just fun.
And you feed well off of it. And
yeah.
Nice. That makes a big difference. You've said that there have been some challenges along the way. What have those been for you?
Well, I've had to learn about what I say as being an educator, and the stories that I tell. I mean, a lot of my stories are nonfiction, and I mix fiction together, but I've had moments where it has caught up to me a little bit, to where I had to get take down videos and remove things, and like learn how to reword things, because people are kind of sensitive and and get offended. This new generation is a little coddled, so it's not my fault, know. Is
that something you just kind of learned by default, or have you had some guidance on that, where somebody's looked at some of the stuff you've done and go, okay, don't do this, do more of this?
No, I mean, most people like the stuff that I do, but unfortunately, like, I guess me being an educator and then a comedian, I like to connect the two together. To me, I think it's a perfect mix, but like I said, unfortunately, everybody is not going to like it or agree with it, and so it's more people that like it. So
do you find that your audience is changing as you learn that stuff?
Yes. Yes.
And that's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, definitely is.
So we had talked about how, and this kind of feeds off the last question, how it can be a blessing and a learning situation.
Right.
Explain that a little bit more. How can it be both?
The blessing is doing what you love. I love comedy, and I love making people laugh, and that's something I'm good at. And so the lesson in it is learning how to deal with people that might not agree with it, or people that might come after you or try to sue you for something, and getting good advice, from an entertainment lawyer, and all of that goes. Like, I mean, I love doing it. Hey, I guess it has its ups and downs.
Right. Did you think about getting an entertainment lawyer and getting advice and stuff before you started, or did you run into a situation where, like, I should probably get some advice on something?
I got into a situation and I busted his door, like, help me, like, what should I do, you know? And so
I'm guessing that's probably pretty normal. You don't think there's going to be a problem until there is one, and then you're like, oh, I should probably get some help. Right,
yeah, because, I mean, I'm learning more and more as I get further into my comedy career, and so I didn't realize you can type in my name and all this stuff comes up, and I was like, ooh, okay, you know, and then I go back and look at some of it like, ooh, okay, a little rated R that day, okay, but, I mean, and I do clean stuff too, so... People like everything, so I mean, I'm constantly getting booked, so I guess people like what they hear.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, learning experiences, performing more and more frequently, this is going to be kind of a two-part question here, and that is, who are your favorite comedians? But also, you've been able to open for some big names.
Yeah.
So is that something you can release to the public, or?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I'm kind of scared, like is something else gonna happen? Look,
Right.
no. But I like Country Wayne, and he was there's very few internet comedians that I like, and he came up off of the internet, so
interesting.
I like him. But he's like one of the few ones off of the internet that I really like is Country Wayne. I got to open for him.
Cool.
He was at the Improv here in Denver, so I got to open for him. And my favorite comedians is Richard Pryor, Sammy Davis Jr., Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, and Lucille Ball. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, you know, I get kind of older, you know.
Sure.
But, I mean, you know, like I like a lot of comedians like Steve Harvey, Bernie Mac, you know, rest in peace, you know.
Do you find that you tailor your comedy after anybody? Or do you try to not do that?
I watch everybody to learn how to perform, like
Right.
as far as stage presence and how I should present myself. But I don't really, like I would say, copy or bite off of anyone,
Right.
like I see a lot of comics do. So,
Yeah.
I have that happen to me too. So,
Oh, interesting.
where I'm just having a regular conversation like I am with you,
Yeah.
and then it turns into a joke, and you be like, "Hey, I heard that somewhere
Right.
before." Like, hold on, like
Right.
so.
Right, did I say that?
Right.
Right.
So sometimes you give people material, and so I started doing it because I was like, everybody's doing it to me. So
right.
hey.
Well, and that brings me to the next question, and that is, and I think you've kind of already answered it, but so is comedy pretty competitive? Do you feel like you're competing not only for an audience, but with other comedians?
Well, I don't feel like I'm competitive. I feel like other comics get competitive because being a woman in a male-dominated industry, you have to deal with the men that's like, you know, judging you and characterizing you a little bit. But I'm never in competition. Like, this is my gift. I do my thing. I'm just worried about me, you know. So I'm not looking at what's around me, but when I do look at what's around me, you know, for safety measures,
Right.
then I start to, you know, see like, okay, these men are kind of maybe, you know, having an issue with me or, you know, but I mean, I don't pay attention to it. So.
Have you ever done a lineup where you were part of a bunch of comedians, and do you find that ends up being competitive, or do you find everybody pretty much has a plan and they just do their plan? And
yeah, everybody has a plan and they do their plan, but I've had people just kind of try to discourage me, and as far as like before I go out there, like, oh, you're not gonna do this or you're not gonna do that. I've had that happen, and so you know they feisty in LA, so that's happened to me in LA,
Right.
and I've kind of had
Different
to be
world.
like, right,
Yeah.
So. I just keep the taser. I just
Right.
I watch
Right.
them. They watch me flicker it, like, and then they kind of like leave me alone. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the learning process, though, too, right? You learn how to just brush stuff off.
Right.
Yeah. You had mentioned a lot of your favorite comedians. What has changed over the decades? You and I had talked prior to this about the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Right.
But we also talked about some of the comedians, you know, as far back as the 40s.
Right.
And how things have changed. So this is a lot of questions in one. What have you seen that's changed over those decades?
Technology. I would say it's the technology, and the internet has changed it. The regular stage presence, or where the comedians have to actually work hard and be good at what they did back then. But it's like now it's been a little diluted through the internet. So I mean, I would say it's changed. A lot has been taken away.
Right. You had mentioned the guy that came up through the internet. Is he the exception to the rule?
He's actually funny, you know, and he has good stage presence as well. So he's gifted in on the internet and on stage. And what a lot of comedians that come up off the internet, the stage presence is different. And so, well, I'm gonna say DC Young Fly, he's good at it too. So, but a lot of comics that I see that come up off the internet, the stage presence is different, and it's like the laughs are not as, this like how it should be.
Right.
Like,
do you think that's because they're in a more controlled environment?
Yes.
You look at the comedians that did the USO shows and they had no control.
Right.
So.
It's like they have their fan base and people are going to like them whether they make them laugh or not.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
It's like, that's just like, you like somebody and it doesn't matter what they do, you just like them.
You like them. Right. Right. Do you find that you're having to learn both worlds?
Yes.
How does that work when you plan your, do you have an internet comedy versus a stage comedy or?
I just do stage comedy. I need to work on my internet comedy.
Right.
Because I was told that that's a way to get in, and unfortunately, in 2018, I have to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just observing and learning more as I go, but I prefer the old-fashioned way. I like being on the stage, and I like learning from the people that's been doing it 20, 30, 40 years, and I guess I just have to learn. 2019, you're going to see more videos.
Nice.
I was doing videos, and then I go back and look at them the next day and be like, no, never mind. Like, so that's something I have to get past and just be bold and just do it.
Right,
So.
Right. And you'll definitely find an audience that way, too.
Oh, yeah.
Just going for it.
Oh, yeah. People wait for them, and, it's just me,
That's
so
awesome.
I have to push myself into doing that more. So.
Right. If you could change the industry, what would you change?
I would go back to the old way of doing things, to where you really had to work hard and, and promote yourself and actually be good, and actually have the talent. Because the comics that really have the talent, they are overlooked a lot, I think. And so the people that are overlooked have to open for the people that are not all that great, but they just have the fan base. They just have the popularity. So it's a little backwards.
Is that a content issue? You know what the niche is, and so that's what people are hitting, and that's why they have a fan base, whereas people who aren't maybe in that niche just aren't, who may be better, just aren't getting the fans? Or is it just luck of the draw? Or
I think they still are able to do it independently. They're able to make a career out of it, but it's not as, they're not making the same money as the people that are not as good.
Right.
So I guess it's the generation changing, and
Well, we had talked about that the other day too, how, the 40s look different than the 50s, than the 60s.
Right.
Which decade, if you had to choose one, which would be your favorite decade for comedy?
The 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When Eddie Murphy had them little tights and you could see his little,
Are we going to have to filter that out? So do you think that was, do you think that each decade had a peak for comedy, or do you think that, that there's a decade that really stands out as its own?
I would say the 70s and 80s, because like the 60s and back, did we say Sammy Davis Jr. started making that, started setting the grounds for, the stand-up comedy part?
Right.
And so, I think around that time is when the stand-up comedy started happening, but before, when they would just act and just act goofy, and you couldn't see what they were saying, so that's just pretty much how it started.
Gotcha.
So with just acting and no words. It definitely has changed, and but the 70s and the 80s would be the comedy that I would like to have been in that time.
Okay.
Of doing it.
Yeah.
So, and the 90s was great too.
Okay.
So.
Very cool. So what's next for you? What's your end goal, and what's your next step? You and I have talked a little bit about some of this. I don't know if any of it's top secret or not, but so.
I want to audition. I'm going over some scripts so I can audition in LA. I'm taking some acting classes to perfect my craft. And I would eventually like to do some short films and get in a couple of commercials, maybe audition for some movies and do a little HBO special maybe or so. But I'm working on getting to that level. I've been thrown into something big before and wasn't ready.
Right.
So I've grown a lot, and so now I feel like I'm slowly getting ready and prepared to, you know,
So you're wanting to be able to do the stand-up and the film type comedies. That's cool.
Yes, because I do have a side to me that where, you know, I can make the crazy faces or, you know, I want to show more of my personality of who I really am. So I think that would be fun.
Very cool. Thanks so much for coming up today. I know this was a trek for you.
Oh, yeah.
So
Thanks for having me. No, I thought I was in kidnapping zone once I passed Estes Park.
Right. right. Yeah.
Well,
thanks. And we're going to put your contact information up during the credits, and you're going to do a little skit for us here at the end. So folks, stick around. Definitely stick around for her skit. We're going to have her contact information up so you can get a hold of her if you'd like. Make sure you like, make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe, comment, let Taheera know what you think of what she's doing, as well as all the other guests we've had on this program. Show your support for them. And stick around for this comedy at the end. I'm Michael Hartsock. Thanks for watching Futurartist Records Presents.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight? Hope everybody's great. So I'd like to tell a quick little story real quick from about when I did a show in Austin, Texas. So I was coming back on a flight from Austin, Texas to Denver, and I met this gentleman. He was an Italian. He looked like he had made good money, like he was a businessman. And so we had good conversation on the plane. He seemed really nice. And the turbulence, there started to be a lot of turbulence on the plane. The turbulence makes me nervous. Like, I'm afraid of airplanes. I'm afraid of flying. So I decided to get some rest. So I put on a blindfold so I can get some rest. And so my armrest was on the left-hand side of me, so decided to go to sleep. And so I was awakened again by the turbulence, again from this plane, so I kept grabbing the handle to just, to help me be at ease from being nervous on this flight. So the turbulence was pretty bad, so I kept grabbing this handle. The handle started getting kind of warm, and so I was like, is the heat on this plane, or is it, So the handle didn't seem as hard, it seemed like it was soft, but then the handle, was hard at the same time. So I was like, why, this handle is, warm like this. So I decided to take off the blindfold, and what I noticed I was grabbing, it wasn't the handle, it was my neighbor's manhood. And so I was really embarrassed, I was like, oh, sir, I'm so sorry, sir. Like, I didn't mean to grab, your manhood, And so he didn't say anything. He was just smiling at me, like, just gave me this little grin, He was just, really calm. And so I was like, sir, you said my apology. I'm sorry. That was disrespectful. Please don't charge me with sexual harassment, okay? I know somebody wants to get back at the women for that. So, I'm sorry about that, sir. And so he was like, oh, no, that's fine. He was like, it's okay. He was like, oh, my God. He was like, you're amazing, And he was like, I would love to take you out on a date. So I was like, sir, I don't know. Like, I've never dated outside my race, I was like, and you know what they say, once you go black, you never go back, And so he was like, oh, no. He was like, I totally understand. You're breathtaking. And, And he was like, and I can clearly see why somebody would say, once you go black, you will never go back. But you know what they say, once you go white, you get your credit right. And so that left me to think a little bit like, my credit score is a little low, So, so he gave me his card and I was like, hey, this is the first time for everything, right? Thank you. I'm Taheera Harris. Thanks for having me tonight. Y'all all have been amazing. That's all I have.